I'm super glad you guys came and made the choice to be here. Very first Thrive Friday night. This has been in the planning for several months now, and we're finally here, and I've been looking forward to this day. And, we feel that this type of program is one of those essentials in a church. It's kind of like a food pantry, where every church should have a food pantry. Every church should have some sort of recovery program. And we had one before. Was run by Mary Manners, and man, she did such a great job with that, but she was doing it for years and needed to take a break and completely understand that. So it gave us a chance to kind of change things up, and here we are now. So, we aim to provide a place where people can learn how to use God's healing power in their lives. So I believe in this journey. Obviously, Paul believes in this journey. Hopefully that, you guys will believe in this journey. Maybe you're asking what qualifies Brandon up here to run a recovery program. Well, I've had my own battles with addiction, mental health, grief, struggle. I struggle on and off with PTSD right now for my time in the military. Thankfully, through the VA, I get really good care. They take care of veterans so well. So I thank God for what the VA does for veterans, and I don't know where I would be without them. So I take this program very personally, and I hope that you guys will take this program very personally as well and find comfort here amongst fellow believers and fellow people that are going through something, and then learn to trust God with your journey and your recovery. So I already talked about the first 6 weeks, how they're going to look a little bit different. We're going to talk about the first steps to recovery and kind of how to get in the mindset of how do I get to a place where I'm ready to recover? Because a lot of us, maybe we've been spinning our wheels in the dirt and the mud for so long. We're like, man, how do I even get to a place where I even know how to get into this recovery mindset? So the Thrive journey hopefully will teach you how to get there through Christ and through God's kingdom. This process is going to look a little different for everybody, but the principles are all going to be the same. They're all biblical principles behind this idea of revive. So in order to thrive, we must revive. Right? We must have some sort of personal revival. But how do we revive? Well, there's a process to that. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not magic. It's going to take some work. And here's the good news. You got a big, powerful, and loving God that's on your side. And He wants to help you. But you have to want to help you. That's the key. God can only do so much. He's there for you. But you got to make the decision to say, all right, God, I'm ready for help. I'm ready for you to take my life, and show me what to do. Got to want it. If you don't, you're not going to succeed. I'm just going to be honest with you. If you don't want it, you're not going to succeed. And if that sounds harsh, that's because honesty is harsh sometimes. And I promise to be honest with you. I promise to be as honest with you as possible. And if it hurts, I'm sorry, but I will always be honest with you. You may think that you want to go through the process. If you're sitting here today, you may think that you want to go through the process, but there might be something holding you back that you may not even know. And that something is your own mindset. Nothing else is holding you back. Nothing. There's no other person. You can't blame it on anyone else. Now, before we move on to the meat and potatoes, here's what the full revive process looks like the next 6 weeks. All right? So the first one, which is today, is realize that you are not God. Next one is entrust your healing to Jesus. Now, if you wanted to follow along, these are all in your pamphlet too. If you wanted to look, they're on the back. We're going to refer to this multiple times. So feel free to keep this pamphlet or whatever, or if you want to put it on your refrigerator, I don't know, it's up to you. So entrust your healing to God. Vulnerably confess your struggles to one another. Invite the Holy Spirit to renew your mindset. Value transformation over instant relief. and engage faithfully in the journey that God has you on. Once you get through all that stuff, then you are ready to get to the thriving. Right? Then you're ready to thrive in God's kingdom, but it's a process. Right? So we'll talk about all this stuff. We'll establish that foundation for the rest of the Thrive journey. And I strongly encourage you guys. It's a great turnout today. I strongly encourage you guys to be here for the next 5 weeks to get through all the rest of those letters, because each message is going to be equally impactful to your recovery journey. So, you're likely here because you're struggling with something. All right, maybe you've been struggling for a long time. You don't know even how to start this recovery process. Maybe you've made steps in the past and you've kind of backslid. Maybe you don't even know or think you have a problem. Maybe you came here today and I don't even know what this Thrive thing is, but I ain't got nothing going on Friday, so I'm just going to come. But guess what? You probably have something to recover from too. Maybe you're here and you have no clue why. Hopefully you'll figure it out. That's all fine, because at this point, all that matters is you made a decision to come here and you're sitting in a seat today and you're listening to me yammer. And that's a good decision. Hopefully. We'll see, right? And that means something. It does. That means something. You made a choice. You made a step. You made a positive step to be here. And you should be proud of that. One of the hardest parts of recovery is admitting that you have something to recover from. And being here is a step in the right direction. So, when we're in a mindset of recovery and victim mode, there are several hurdles that you got to jump through. The victim struggle with control is real. It is a kind of natural tendency for humans when we're in a victim mindset to kind of control our surroundings, control everything. Right? We got to control our problems. We got to control our pain. Maybe we control other people, or we try to control other people. Right? Can't truly control other people. You try to grasp for control of anything that you can, right? Because you're desperate for that control, because you can't control your own life. I get it. I've been there. I get it. I still get there sometimes. As difficult as it is, we're not going to make any progress in recovery until you can realize that you are not God. You're not God. I'll say it again. You are not God. So if you're being honest with yourself right now and you really dig deep and you think about it, are you trying to play God with yourself? Have you even given God a chance to help you heal? And this is really the major turning point for anyone in a victim mindset, is once you can truly surrender control to God, actually surrender, really lay it all down, face to the floor and surrender, then your heart will finally be susceptible to His healing. But if you don't surrender your control to God, you're going to stay in a victim mindset, and there's really no way around that hurdle. So Isaiah 55:8-9 says, For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. And that's kind of like the focus verse for this step of the revive process. Part of accepting that we are not God is understanding that we are powerless to control our tendency to do wrong things. Right? We can't really control that we live in a fallen world. We can't control what Adam and Eve did. We can't control all of the wrongs of the Old Testament and all the way through Scripture. So let's try this right now. Have you ever stayed up too late knowing that you had to get up the next morning early? If you tell me no, I know you're lying to me. All right, I've done it. Have you ever eaten too much junk food knowing full well later that you're going to end up regretting it? Yeah, me too. Mikey's back there like, yeah, oh yeah. Just kidding. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you out, Mikey. Yeah, I got my gallbladder taken out about a year ago, and I'm still learning how to deal with that one. So, have you ever done something really selfish? I mean, disgustingly selfish, only to wonder later why you did it? Like, what was I thinking? What was I doing? Like, I don't even recognize myself. We all have a sinful nature. We will always have a sinful nature. Till the day we die, we will have a sinful nature. We cannot escape that. That is exactly why we're trying to recover. And when we try to recover without God on our own, we're going to keep on slipping up and we're going to keep on ending up in a ditch. It's because we can't help but just trip over our own foot. Our mindsets are so difficult. Now, I really like this verse. I really want you to dig deep on this one because I'm going to bring it up a couple times. This is Paul in Romans 7:15. For I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. I mean, how many of you can relate with that one? I got to get some water. I do the very thing I hate. Like, come on now. How relevant is that? And his book was written how long ago, and it's so relevant today. I'm coming back to that one a couple times. I do things that I hate all the time. It drives me insane. I'm like, what is wrong with you, dude? I notice that it happens when I'm trying to do things on my own. And I'm trying to not involve God, and I'm trying to control it myself. And then I go and look at verses like this in Proverbs. There is a way that seems right to man, but it ends. The end is the way to death. And man, I'm sorry that escalated a little quickly. I know. I'm not saying you're going to die. All right, it's a little extreme. I know, but the whole idea is, when we go our own way and we take our own path, we'll end up hitting a wall. Seriously, we can try to control our own stuff like we're smarter than God, like we know what we're doing. Christian or not, it happens and it's going to continue to happen. We're just going to end up failing. We need to realize that we are the root cause. We are, not anyone else. Yes, you may have been hurt by someone. You may have been affected by someone else's sin. But the fact that you are staying in that position of grief or something, you are still the root cause of staying there. Right? Sometimes your issues come from unfortunate events. Our response to problems does not come from anyone but ourselves. And that's what we really need to focus on. So those of you struggling with grief, I don't want you to think that I'm leaving you out. This absolutely applies to you as much as anyone else. If grief is why you're here today, it's a completely normal response to a tragic life event to try to grasp at things and control things. However, if you've been stuck in a cycle of grief for an extended amount of time, consider that you might be trying to heal yourself without God. Consider that. Now, bottom line is when we try to control our own situations during a time of struggle, we typically don't have a mindset that is of good discernment. Right? We're not really in our right mind. We need to acknowledge that. And we're not God, and we can't fix everything. We have a tendency to make those decisions that are not in our best interest. We need to involve God and trust that He's going to do the work in us. And that we are incapable of doing that work ourselves. All right, so what does this control look like? I keep talking about this control stuff, but I've got specific examples. All right? Sometimes we could try to control how people see us, right? How people perceive us, our image to other people. How many times have you told people, I'm fine, I'm good, when you're clearly not? I hear some laughs out there. I could probably laugh too, because, I've done that too. I still do it. Feel free to call me out if you think I'm doing it. It's okay. I'm good with it. All right. When we're in a mindset of crisis, We have a natural defense mechanism to keep people out. Stay out of my biz. It's trying to convince people that we're just fine when we're not. And some of us are better at it than others. Some of us are really fine-tuned at it, of hiding that. You know, that mechanism of control is just denial. We deflect and we protect ourselves. And all that does is just make the damage deeper. And it doesn't mean that you need to be an open book and tell everybody your whole life story and all that stuff, all the problems that you have. But I suspect most of you already know what I'm talking about. You know, trying to influence how others see us is a classic method of control for those who are going through some sort of difficult time. Now, another one is we try to control other people, which is the craziest one ever, because we all know you're not going to control other people. You could think you are, right? Or you can absolutely try, but you're going to destroy relationships in the process. You know, in some cases, people in a crisis mindset, they try to do that deflecting of their problems to control other people. Maybe it's their spouses trying to control each other. Maybe it's parents exerting excessive control over their kids, or children exerting control over their peers, or even friends exerting control over each other. Manipulation is an abusive control mechanism. That's it. It's abusive. So if that's your control mechanism, it needs to stop. You know, we do it to make ourselves feel better, and at the end of the day, I think all of us can say it doesn't work. The next one is we try to control our problems, right? Like we somehow have control of the problem that we're even having an issue with, right? We use statements like, it isn't that big of a deal. I can quit anytime. I used that one when I was a smoker. I smoked for like 12 years of my life, and I was like, yeah, I could quit anytime. Yeah. Hey, man, what a big lie that was. Another one is, I don't have time to handle this right now. I'm so busy, I just can't deal with this. I just can't. We minimize our problems as a way to control them, ignoring them and putting them on the back burner, wishing them away. All the while, they just fester and they boil over. You know, we may find temporary relief in trying to control stuff, but the problems don't go away. We can't actually control them until we get them addressed. And then we try to control our pain. This is kind of where it gets dangerous for addicts, right? How do you handle your pain? Do you run from it? Do you hide from it? Do you smother it with substances, drugs, or alcohol? Do you overeat to make yourself try and forget it? Do you control? You know, trying to control your pain is always temporary. It's always temporary. It's never permanent. You know, we deny, we delay, we postpone, we ignore the pain altogether as a means to try and control it. But it always creeps up at the least convenient moment. You'll start crying and you'll be like, why am I crying right now? In public. I've done it before. You know, some of my deepest moments, I'll start crying. I'm like, why am I crying right now? And I'm out in public. This is embarrassing, right? I get it. We protect our pain, or we project our pain on people in unhealthy and abusive ways. We isolate ourselves from our family. Sometimes we even get aggressive and violent, right? There's so many different ways that we try to control our pain that are unhealthy. And it never ends up in a good way. And so as we constantly try to play God with ourselves, we constantly try to control our lives and our surroundings and our circumstances, what does that do to us? You know, how does that affect our mindset? How does that affect our body? Because our minds and our body are connected. Right? What's going on in our mind, it absolutely affects our body. There's scientific evidence to back that up. How does it affect our relationships with our loved ones and our relationship with God? Now, control can lead to anger. When we spend so much time trying to control our circumstances, it can make us angry. And why is that? Because you can't actually control anything. And sometimes that makes you mad because people that have control issues, they get mad because they can't control stuff. We think we do, but we keep trying and trying and trying, and we keep beating our head against the wall, and that makes us angry. Anger leads to unintended consequences. We all know that. We can take it out on our families, which just ends up making everything worse. And anger puts us in this box, this ugly box that's very difficult to get out of. Now, trust me, I know, I've been there before. I had some serious anger issues when I was in the Navy. Some serious issues. I had to go to anger counseling for it. And most of my anger stemmed from not dealing with trauma that I had and pain that I had. And that manifested in just some serious anger that it came out of nowhere. Like, it surprised the crap out of me, too. I was like, what is going on? Turned me into a different person. It was ugly. But it stemmed from my need to control my situation. My complete lack of control of my situation. Next, so control can lead to fear. We can be afraid. How scary is it when you realize you have no control over certain things in your life? How terrifying. It's scary. Especially when you're in a really bad mindset. Coming to the realization that you have no control can definitely lead to fear. Interestingly enough, this fear can lead to deeper control issues and a deeper need to control as almost like a survival instinct. It's a nasty cycle because it just kind of ping-pongs back and forth, and you just get deeper and deeper, and you get more afraid, and then you could try to control more, and you get more afraid. And this is especially prevalent when we're trying to kind of fake our way through life. Without addressing our problems, we end up developing all kinds of fear-based responses to our everyday life. Habitual lying, for example, can be a fear-based response. Control can lead to frustration, absolutely. Frustration and anger aren't the same thing. They're definitely different. Frustration is more of a constant thing. It's something that lingers with you, whereas anger comes out in bursts. Our desire to control can definitely be frustrating because the results we expect don't happen most of the time. Or we feel like we have so many things that we need to control, and we get overwhelmed and we get frustrated by it. This is something that I still deal with. I get frustrated because I feel like I have so much going on in my life that I need to control it. And I get frustrated when I can't just wrap my hands around it and just figure it out. Another scenario that may be frustrating is kind of how life just keeps tossing obstacles at you. You may have figured out one issue in your life, and then life just kind of lobs another grenade at you right afterwards. You're like, yeah, I got over that one. Oh, no, there's a grenade. Yep. If you have unresolved issues and you get more issues tossed at you, it's absolutely frustrating. I get that. If you feel like you've tackled something and you just get slapped in the face again with a new one, then you just try to control it more. It's always going to backfire. Control absolutely will exhaust you. It will lead you to be exhausted all the time. Trying to control everything is tiresome. Mentally, physically, emotionally, it's a constant drain on your body. It's not good for you. It's absolutely not. Yet we still have that tendency to need it. We need that control. And it just, you know what? Life can drag us through the dirt, and we can still grasp for control in the dust behind us as we're being dragged. We could be in our lowest moment and still be trying to find a way to control something in our life. I'm going to go back to Paul here. Sometimes we can hate our natural tendency to just get in our own way and be self-destructive. But as we continue to try and play God in our own lives, we just continue that pattern of self-destruction. Okay, now control can make you feel like a failure. as we continue to try to take control over stuff, inevitably we're going to fail over and over again. It's pretty much a natural progression, right? To feel like a failure. Why is my life so messed up? Why can't I just figure this out? Why do I do things that just, why do these bad things keep happening to me? Why me? Why not someone else? Here's the big question that I really want you to leave here today thinking about is, how bad do things have to get for you to finally acknowledge that you don't have control? I'll tell you what, when you get to a point where you can drop the walls, pull back the curtains, turn the lights on, and expose the ugliness in your life, and really give God a chance to control it, the freedom that you will feel is going to be immeasurable, almost overwhelming. You will feel a weightlessness that you cannot explain. Something we were talking about in my small group yesterday was we were talking about moments with the Holy Spirit, where the Holy Spirit just kind of grabs you. That's one of those moments, right? When you give your life to God and you give your problems to God and you truly trust Him, that's one of those moments. And you feel relief that you didn't even think was possible. I'm telling you right here, right now, if you stop being so stubborn, put your control issues in the trash, and let God take the wheel in your recovery, you will actually be able to start recovering. Now, here you were all this time thinking that controlling your situation was the answer, but in reality, giving up control is the answer. Right? That's how you start healing. You're telling God that you're actually ready for Him to make changes in your life. You're telling God that you trust His path for you and that you don't know what's best for you. Now, He does. I'll go back again to Paul. Paul's saying that we make choices that we hate. How about making a choice that you can be proud of? Right? When you choose to put your faith in God to help you deal with your issues, you can be proud of that. You can. And I'm not talking about the kind of pride that God hates. I'm talking about the kind of pride that you feel as a Christian who believes in God, who believes that Jesus is the way. You can be proud of that. There's nothing wrong with that. You can be proud of your decisions if they're decisions that lead you to be closer to God and closer to His kingdom. So all of this that I'm saying really comes down to this one statement. And I really want you to focus on this one statement. It's kind of like the big idea, but I'm not going to call it that because I don't want to steal, or the main point, I don't want to steal it from Brett. So, stop trying to play God and let God do the God things. Stop it. Just stop. All right. I have to put some funny stuff in here because I'm a clown and I just can't help myself. You guys know Bob Newhart? I don't know if you've ever seen the Bob Newhart skit where he's a counselor from Mad TV. Some of you probably already know what I'm talking about. So from 2001, there was a Mad TV episode where he was a counselor, and my wife Laura told me about this, by the way, I'll blame it on her. It starts with a woman coming into his office, and for a therapist's office for counseling. And the therapist is Bob Newhart. And Bob says, he starts off by saying, I'll tell you what, about our billing policy. We bill for $5 for the first 5 minutes. And then absolutely nothing after that. She's like, all right, that sounds too good to be true, but that sounds good. We'll do it. And Bob says, I can almost guarantee you that this session won't last more than 5 minutes. And the woman starts to describe her fear of being buried alive in a box. And Bob asks some goofy, clarifying questions about whether she's actually ever been attempted to be buried in a box. She says no, and how it's irrational and all that stuff. So Bob says something like, I'm going to tell you 2 words right now, and I want you to remember, take out of this office with you, and I want you to really focus on just these 2 words. And the woman's like, okay. She braces herself. She's ready for it. And then Bob yells at her, stop it! Just stop it! Stop! It's actually really good advice, right? But, I mean, it's a lot easier said than done. Can't just stop it, right? Our brains are wired to overthink and over-emotionalize, and we make things harder on ourselves to recover, but that's what makes us human. And so in practice, to stop it advice, it's funny, right? But it doesn't work. But I know you're going to leave here today thinking about it. Later on, you're gonna feel yourself in a situation you're trying to control, and you're going to be like, "Stop it!" Right? Maybe you'll look up the video. I don't know if you will, and maybe yell "Stop it" at yourself. Bob Newhart, 2001. Look it up. All right. When you try to control and suppress your feelings, you tell yourself, "Stop it." I know many of you struggle with the weight that you're carrying, but you need to remember that you're powerless to change your past. The past won't go away. It will always be with you, but you have no control over it. You're powerless to manipulate and control others. Any control you think you have is superficial, and it's potentially abusive. You are powerless to cope with your tendency to make self-destructive decisions. Good intentions and willpower aren't enough, especially for someone that's really deep in it. But you need to let God do work and you to heal. His healing is the only real healing. But He gives more grace, therefore, it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. You may be asking yourself, Brandon, how in the world do I actually get God to do work in me? I am not worth it. It's a fantastic question. Again, I highly encourage you to come back to the next 5 weeks of Thrive. I'll be covering the rest of the Revive model. And we'll I think as it goes along, you'll start seeing the pattern. You'll start understanding that path, right? This kind of road that we're leading you on. And I showed you in your guide, the bifold that we gave you, that the 6 principles are on the back. Don't be afraid to keep that with you. I also, in there, I included some questions to think about, some thought questions. Don't be afraid to keep those with you throughout the week and really think about that stuff. What are some things that you're doing in your life that are evidence that what you're doing isn't working? Look at those questions and really think about it. If you want more information on Thrive and Revive and all this stuff, I put some QR codes on there as well. You can scan and get more information. You go to southpoint.church/thrive. There's a lot of stuff on there. You will have all of the resources readily available to you. You will have the support of me, the other Thrive leaders, and the participants in this room, and of God's kingdom. At this point, you really have no excuse not to continue this journey. There's no excuse. In fact, if you decide not to come next week or the week after or the week after, is that you trying to exert control over your situation? Do you have your stuff together so well that you don't need it? You don't need to come here? If you do, then why are you even here today? Actually, if you have it together, come let me know, because I don't even have my stuff together. I would love to know what the secret sauce is. It would be great. Think about it. Think about it through the week. No one is going to force you to go on this journey. You have to make the choice to better yourself. No one is going to open your calendar on your phone and put Thrive 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday for the next 5 weeks. No one's going to do that for you. No one's going to make you get off the couch and make you come here and take it seriously. You have to do it. And that is the control that you do have in your life. You do have that control. That's the good control that you can exert in your life. A choice to do something to be proud of. And then why you're here today. If you don't know me very well, you'll learn that I use very blunt language. I'm very direct. I don't like beating around a bush with a wiffle bat. I like to get directly to the point and crack the issue open and really see the ugliness inside, because that's the easiest way to just get to the plan and figure out how to make it beautiful. Just know that everything I say is out of love. I love all of you in here. I really do. I don't just say that, right? I would not be up here talking to you if I didn't care deeply about every single one of you.